Nick him.
Okay, guys, we're there. We are there. We're live. We're feeding into central London at the moment and what's going on. With me today, I've got Carl Bell with me. So we're going to be dropping in and out of the feed. So let me start the conversation with Carl first, and then we'll drop back into what's happening in central London.
Don't need my headphones, or can you hear me okay?
Give me a second and I'll... Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, just making sure you can hear me okay.
Yes, I can hear you now. I've suspended the volume on what's happening in central London. So how are you today, Carl?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good.
Yeah, I noticed yesterday you went down to the march yesterday.
Yes, I did.
And you were staying safe, I can say.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't see any trouble there yesterday. I saw 1,000 people peacefully protesting. I heard there was some trouble later on, but I left. It must have been after 5, 6 o'clock. I saw no trouble. I saw no arrests. And I was really glad to be there, to be making a stand.
And when you say you were glad to be there, how did you feel, being as part of this mass movement?
I think that we're part of change. There's been rallies before, there's been protests before. I think this time is a little bit different. And I felt that I wanted to be, it's okay to complain about things, but you complain, but you do nothing about it. You don't make a stand. You stay silent and expect someone else to do it. No. If you feel that strongly about it, be there. Let your voice be heard. Let your protest be known. Make it peaceful, but make it be known. And I went with my wife and my grandson. My grandson's 12 years old, and I took him because he needs to know that this is happening, because this is the world he's going to grow up in. This affects him now and will affect him in the future. And if I don't do something about it or make a stand, what am I actually saying to him?
So why do you feel this one's making such a big difference? You've said that there's been protests before. You said there's been protests before. Why has this one been such a big difference?
I've never been to one before, but you know what I saw even on the way there? I was on a train, and I saw so many people that were white people, Asian people, mainly white people. You see, the thing is, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You see, once you see white people protesting for Black Lives Matters,
yeah,
there's going to be a change, because black people have been trying to change this for so long. But it's not a black person problem. It's a racism problem, and it's perpetrated by other people. And I think once you see white people start to say Black Lives Matter, it means the value of our lives is going up in stock.
But then
I've not seen that before.
Then it's probably a numbers game, because it's a numbers game, isn't it? Because white people are the major indigenous population. So there's more white people than black people at any point in time.
That may be so, but never have I seen so many come out in support of something which doesn't really affect them.
Wow.
And I've seen it in London, and you see it across the world. You see it in Australia, you see it in all parts of America. And these particular protests are slightly different.
Wow.
Because this generation seems to be the generation that's going to tip the balance.
They're pushing it over.
I was listening to, I watched the memorial for George Floyd, the first one, and there was a speech by Al Sharpton. And
yes, I heard that.
Once he went somewhere on a protest in the early days, and a white woman came up to him and said, "Nigger, go home."
Wow.
And he said this time round, he was leaving Minnesota to go somewhere else. And a white girl came up to him and pulled back his jacket, and he braced himself for some abuse. And she said to him, "Black Lives Matter."
Wow.
So this is the difference between someone saying, "Nigger, go home," and Black Lives Matter. So that means there's been a shift in paradigm, a shift in the way people see things. And you're watching live in London now. You look at the face that you're seeing. You're not seeing a rabble of people. You're seeing a mix of people who are saying, "Listen, I feel strongly about this enough to come out. And I'm white. I've got white privilege. I don't need to be here. This is not affecting me, but I feel strongly enough for injustice." And this is not a white or black thing. This is an injustice thing.
So the common denominator there is injustice.
Wrong. It's about injustice. What I'm protesting for is injustice. I want justice for black and white. But at the moment, we're getting the wrong end of the stick.
Wow. Wow. So how would you say, how do you feel then? No, let me not ask that question. Let me go back in time. Have you ever suffered any racist experiences throughout your lifetime?
I have suffered so much racism at the hands of police and at the hands of.
Let's go back to when you were a young man. You're a younger man. This is just a few years ago.
If we go back to the younger, unsaved Carl that wasn't a Christian, that was living up in an inner city area of Birmingham, racism was normal. From neighbors to going to the shops with my mother, as a young child, to growing up and having interactions with police. I've been followed, I've been harassed, I've been arrested and then beaten up. I got arrested, handcuffed, and then beaten up. Why didn't they beat me up when I wasn't handcuffed? This was happening when I was in my 20s. I'm now in my 50s. What's changed?
So we're talking about 1980s, 1990s.
Yeah. I'll give you a funny story. I find it funny, but it's happened to me 2 weeks ago, outside my house. Now I'm outside my house. A guy that I see walking up and down the street, he goes to the shop in the mornings and the afternoons. I think he's got a bit of a drink problem. And I always say hello to him, and he always comments and says hello. And I don't know him, but we just say, hi, how you doing? He came down the street the other day and he said to me, he had a bit of I think he had a bit too much to drink. He went, all right, mate, how are you? And I went, he's obviously a bit tanked up. I went, are you all right? Be safe. And I was trying to get in the house. And he says to me, oh, hang on a minute. I always speak to you, what's your name? I went, oh, my name's Carl. What's your name? He says, my name's Brian. He said, Carl. I went, yeah. He says, that's a good black name.
Wow.
What does that mean? Now, I see this guy every day, and I've never interacted with him that way before. But the fact that he said I had a good black name, what does that mean?
Wow.
So racism's still around. He probably doesn't even think he's being racist.
Yeah, that's
what's
true.
in his heart? What's a good black name? I was in Puerto Rico and I jumped in a taxi. And a man said to me, where are you from? And I said, London. And he said, are there people like you in London?
Yeah.
And I went, excuse me? He says, black people. And I went, yeah, we're everywhere now. He went, oh. Now, is that racism?
Yeah, well.
That's mild.
Yeah, it's mild, but
I'm talking about being profiled. I'm talking about going to a shop and people look at you a certain way. I'm talking about just the subtle things of getting onto the tube and people just look at you a certain way. You see, racism is very subtle. Occasionally it spills out and people get killed.
Yeah.
But it's there.
That's extreme.
And it's injustice. And we are suffering injustice in the workplace, in health, in housing, in every way you can think of it. When I go out every day, I have to almost brace myself thinking, let me just be prepared for whatever's going to come. Why would I want my grandson to grow up like that?
But do you think we've become so used to it, so we kind of just ignore it? We don't respond anymore?
I think that it has been a norm all of my life, and I'll never get used to it. But I'm never surprised about it. But you see, what this situation has done.
But you don't react there and then. You don't respond.
Listen, if I reacted every single time, you see this guy who said I've got a good black name, what was I supposed to say? Now, I could have torn him to pieces on that, but what would be the point?
Yeah.
What would be the point? You've got to know which battles to get into, and that wasn't one I could see any point. But this situation with the last killings that's happened over the last month or so, what they've done, they've torn a scab off of an old wound.
Yeah, it's definitely an old wound.
And that wound has opened up again. And it shows that wound isn't just with one person. That wound spreads over continents.
But you see, I
That's
look
why
back.
you see marches happening every day.
But I look back over the years, and I go back to the one I can remember very clearly is the Stephen Lawrence murder. And Doreen Lawrence campaigned for over 20 years to get justice.
Okay.
Over 20 years, and and that didn't cause this kind of movement.
It didn't cause this kind of movement because the police is institutionalized racist anyway. They're racist, and all she was doing was putting her head up against a wall.
But that's what. But out of her inquiry, that's the Macpherson report reported and confirmed that the police were institutionally racist. It was her campaign.
That's like me admitting I'm an alcoholic, but then doing nothing to change my position.
All right.
So the police said, yes, we're racist, and we're not going to change anything, because how many years on, how many more people have died since then? How many people have been harassed? How the police force, how heavy-handed are they with a black person? I got stopped in my car in Dalston probably about a year ago. There was a police van, and there was a car up behind me, and before you know it, was 8 police surrounding my car, thinking, all of this for a traffic stop? Why?
Wow. They think you were going to kick off.
I was by myself. and I thought, really? Is this really necessary? You see, being black shouldn't be a crime.
No, it's not.
But clearly, it's seen as a crime. I noticed some of the people when we were protesting yesterday. I saw some people in cars, and we had to walk through the streets because it wasn't blocked off, and I could see the fear in some white people's minds.
Wow.
You know what that fear is? That fear is their imagination. See, they have an imagination about what a black person is without knowing the reality of who black people are.
They're thinking the worst.
And this imagination is perpetrated by the media, because the media paints a particular narrative, and the narrative is always going to be negative. So the media is not interested in the truth. It's interested in headlines.
Yes, it's headlines that sell the papers. So
it's not the truth is irrelevant.
Yeah. It's
the headlines. And what's in your imagination becomes your reality. It may not be true. So there's an inherent fear of people that haven't done anything.
So we've suffered as a result of that.
They talk about looting. They talk about violence. Who started looting? Who started violence? We are protesting against violence because we have suffered from violence. We are protesting against looting because we were looted from Africa. So when they talk about violence and stealing, who are the biggest thieves? Not black people, but the media would have that narrative. Every time we protest, you see, if I say anything, I'm automatically an aggressive black person because I've got an opinion.
Yeah, you can't say what you think.
You're not meant to. You see, they want you to be quiet and go away, but they need to check the watch because the time has changed. This is going away.
The thing is that we haven't. I mean, we have some black politicians. I mean, the number of black politicians we have diminished, and I'm talking, Caribbean and African descent. But we haven't yet heard from those black politicians about how they're treated in government, because I am sure that they've gone through some issues themselves.
You've got the David Lammys of this world, and who's the other lady?
Diane Abbott.
Yeah, she's gone through some stuff. I mean,
I know.
I don't agree with everything she says, but I respect what she's about, and I can't imagine what she's had to go through. But that's the problem in itself. Why should we have to go through stuff? I've been through stuff in places I've worked. I've been through this in business. Why should we? You see, I'm not asking for a favor, just a level playing field. Yeah. Just get your foot off of my neck. That's all I'm asking you to do. Yeah. I'm not asking you to give me anything. Just justice, just an equal playing field. Why am I a threat before I even open my mouth?
But justice seems to have a different definition for different communities then. If that's the case, justice means something else between what black people think justice is and what the police think justice is.
Well, where does it all come from? You see, when you've got authority with no accountability, you have problems, you have chaos. And the police have authority but no accountability. They're not brought to account for anything. They can kill you today and justify why they had to do it because of what?
But they do have those bodies that they refer the incident to.
Racism is getting worse. Will Smith said racism isn't getting worse; it's just getting filmed.
Yeah,
So
it's
even
getting publicized.
You can go into someone's house, shoot them 8 times, the wrong person, go, whoops, sorry, and which is what happened with this Breonna Taylor. You went into someone's house, shot them 8 times. And, oh, I'm sorry, it's the wrong person. No accountability. But if I go out there and I steal a Mars bar, they'll try and give me 25 years to life. How's that?
Wow. Wow. I've got Charles as well on the other line. Let me just bring Charles in as to if he's still around with us. No, okay, no, he's not come back yet. Let's just wait for him to come back in. But imagine that walking into someone's house. So it's the wrong person. You've got the wrong person, and you discharge your gun. You discharge your gun, and that's not meant to be the person you're going for. That's terrible.
8 times.
8 times.
Once. Oops, sorry, wrong. 8 times. So you went to kill someone. You didn't go to arrest someone. You went to kill someone. You just killed the wrong person. But there's no accountability.
Wow. So how
this has been happening for years in different places. Just put America to one side. How many people in the UK have been killed or died in police custody under dubious circumstances?
Yeah.
And because there's no footage,
the died in police custody is the biggest one.
The police find a way to go, he died from other conditions. What? From a beating, I'd say.
Yeah, there's no.
But no one held accountable. Listen, if I do something wrong and I get arrested, I deserve whatever punishment's due to me. Because I have to be held accountable for what I've done. But when the police do something, they can get away with it. But you see, when you've got a situation whereby, in society, we sign up to doing the right thing, not going out and nicking our next door neighbor's car, not breaking up the place, just being law-abiding. Yeah? We sign up to that invisibly, just to behave yourself and just act like a human being. But when the people who are the lawmakers decide that they can break the law, all bets are off. Because the lawmakers are accountable for their own laws. So if you're making the law and you're not accountable for it, that's where we got a problem. And then you've got the certain world leaders who are pushing a particular narrative and almost indirectly recruiting more racist dudes.
But I just had a comment here from someone who said that what happened in America has nothing to do with the UK. The cops were charged. The cops were charged, and it has nothing to do with the UK.
Well, that's interesting. I wish I lived in their world, because what happens in America affects us here. And this is not an America problem. This is not a UK problem. This is a worldwide problem of oppression and injustice on black people. And when you are going to say, well, it's happening over there, so it doesn't affect here, it does. Because there's so many injustices that have happened here that have gone on. No one's been held to book by it.
Wow.
So are you going to say it's only when it's happening in my own living room that it's a problem?
Wow.
Well,
Charles. Hi, Charles. How you doing?
People who can't stand up for themselves.
Let me just bring Charles into the conversation. Charles, how you doing?
What's going on, guys? What's happening, Carl?
Hi, how you doing? Okay.
So what's been happening down in Cardiff, Charles? You've been out on the bounce in Cardiff. What's been happening down there?
Yes, I'm not affiliated with the Black Lives Matter Cardiff movement, as it were, but I went to my first ever protest at the age of 36 years old, and I felt it was necessary to actually go there and see what the atmosphere was like, see what the message was about. And I recorded a few videos of speakers. It was extremely well organised, and it was very peaceful. There were no incidents. Well, actually, there was one instance that I'll get to in a second. There was around 3,000, I would say maybe 3,500 people in a park. Social distancing was continuously reminded by the Black Lives Matters, the people who organised the event. They kept coming up and saying to people about social distancing, which I thought was very was very good of them, because they, you know, whether you this coronavirus is obviously a subject matter in itself, in my opinion, anyway. So
Right.
so they did what they had to do. There was no police presence from the view that I had, and it was really, really interesting. The different speakers came out. The speakers were white, they were Asian, they were black, they were of mixed race heritage, and one of the particular speakers was a councilman. He came up, and unfortunately, he made some political views which the crowd didn't agree to his message. And then, unfortunately, he kind of, well, it was just he's a councilman, you know, he can't help himself. So it was a platform, you know, it was a platform of 3,000 people, and he had the mic. And then at the end, he then said that Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. And then there was just a massive shouting and booing of the crowd. And then he actually got rushed off the platform, and then he had to actually be protected to leave the area, to leave the whole park itself, I think. So that was interesting. There was another guy that came up and talked about the nature side of things, because obviously you can talk about institutional and systematic racism that's been going on. I mean, my forefathers, I'm white Afro-Caribbean, so my family, my mum's black from Trinidad, my dad's white from England, so I've got perspectives on both sides. But obviously the black side, they need me right now. Right now, they need a voice. They need.
They need
it's true, because they need me right now, because the white side is interesting, and I think we've had this discussion before. My dad was a fighter pilot in World War II. He was a decorated fighter pilot who fought for this country in the actual in one of the most horrific wars seen. And in World War One, my grandfather, who was white, he also fought for this country. So, but my dad in particular, you know, obviously he married my mum, who was a black woman. And my dad was all for, you know, lives are there to be cherished, they're there to be respected. For me, and come into the point of racism as well. If we just keep it simplistic, I've got 5 children, and if we just keep racism simplistic, it just doesn't make sense how you can judge somebody purely based on the colour of skin. But let's not talk about religion. Let's talk about the political views that people have, or the religious beliefs. Let's just talk about the colour of their skin for a second. How could you judge somebody purely based on the colour of their skin? And I think Carl mentioned something about the imagination, and it's interesting because, and this is disputed, but we'll go with it. There's about 60,000 thoughts that go through your mind every day, and about 80% of that is negative, and about 95% of that is repetitive. And obviously those figures and stats can be argued, but let's just go with those stats. And what Carl just said then, and what you agreed with, Alex, is the narrative that the media gives. What's interesting is with the advancement of social media and the advancements of technology, is that we're now seeing events that only the traditional media would be able to show through newspapers, through magazines, through the radio, and through the television set. What we're now seeing is the ability that you can actually come up with different viewpoints to make up your own mind of what's right and what's wrong. And like I said, I've got 5 children. My 17-year-old boy, my 11-year-old girl in particular, have taken great offence to what's happened to George. They've been extremely upset about it, as have I. And I haven't even showed them the video. They haven't seen the video. That I think they've seen little snippets, maybe of their own social media platforms. But I've tried to protect them from it. But there is no more hiding from the fact that black people in particular are an ethnic minority who have been oppressed, and they have just been subjected to the most disgusting slurs, the most disgusting attacks. We're not just talking about police brutality. We're talking about, you know, in the community itself, in terms of jobs, in terms of sport. You know, you look at any areas, the percentage of blacks is always minute, but the percentage of, if you look at the jail sentences and the higher the prisons, the higher ring fence prisons, you look at the blacks in there, and it's always a higher percentage. Always a high percentage. But coming back to the Cardiff protest, it was an extremely peaceful protest, and I spoke to 2 police liaison officers who were attending. 2 police liaison officers, not the people that you see there, the police officers in the yellow vest. These were blue vests. These were police liaison officers. So there was 2 guys policing 3,500 people in Cardiff. Then they marched after the event. The event finished at 3 o'clock. They marched towards the Cardiff Bay area outside the Welsh Assembly. They call it the Senate. And there, the police, there was about 15 yellow vest police officers. They were standing at the top
Right.
And there was around 500 of the crowd had gone out of the 3,000, and then the protest continued. But this time, it was technically an unlawful protest because it wasn't condoned by the South Wales Police, whereas the park protest was condoned and signed off by South Wales Police. But
So
this
they got permission
wasn't,
to demonstrate inside the park.
they got the permission from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. They got permission from South
Right.
Wales Police to do it, because over here in Wales, you're not even allowed to have gatherings of more than 6 people. You're not allowed to have more than 2 people. And the rules over here compared to England and Scotland and Northern Ireland, they're all now mixed up. Everyone's all over the place.
Yeah,
This is different not to England. So technically speaking, yeah, 100%. So the Black Lives Matter Cardiff, they got the permission. They got it signed off by South Wales Police, and they did not advocate, and they did not back the movement then from the park, which was about a mile down the road, to the bay. There was 500 people down the bay. Myself and my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, we went down there. There was social distancing was also observed, and I actually spoke to a couple of police officers myself, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to get a more wider viewpoint. And I also wanted to educate. I think this is always about education, and it's always about empowering. So I wanted to go to a police officer and say, what are your thoughts? Have you seen the video? How do you feel about it? And what is it that you've seen in your job as a police officer? This police officer I spoke to, he'd been in the job for 26 years. He was a white male, been in the job for 26 years. And he said it was really interesting because he lived in Cornwall, which is a predominantly white area of England. And he was Welsh. So there was, and it is still racist, because if you define the term racism, he was called, racist slurs like sheepshagger, Welsh, whatever, which is, all in jest, it's all in fun, especially when it comes to sport. That's fine. But he was also seeing a Punjabi girl for 6 years, and he was subjected to racism from England and Wales. That's kind of like a given. But the racism that he received from the Asian community for being a white man seeing an Asian girl, and he said he'd been in the force for 26 years. Now, these were his words, and I didn't judge him on it. I just took him his face off. He said that he hadn't seen one racist incident involving his colleagues in 26 years. He said he'd seen incidences across the UK and obviously in America in particular, but he hadn't seen one incident of racism. And this is coming from somebody who has been involved in racism against him from other communities. And I thought it was really interesting. So what I asked him was, I said, would it be an iconic moment if these 15 police officers who were all lined up behind the protesters, wouldn't it be an iconic moment? And we've all seen iconic photos and iconic videos throughout the test times. Wouldn't it be iconic if these police officers agreed that it's no longer okay just to be a non-racist? You now should be putting your hand up to be an anti-racist. Wouldn't it be iconic if they could get down and they could, in solidarity, and they could go down on one knee and show the crowd that they were there in solidarity? Because obviously the police were there to maintain law and order. They're there to serve and protect. They're there to protect the crowd. They're there to protect any bystanders. They're there to protect the public. That's what they're paid to do. But if they agree, and I'm sure everyone agrees that video was absolutely despicable, what happened to him, and the deaths in America, and also there's been.
So how can we work our way?
Wouldn't it be? And this is my opinion. This is what I asked him. I asked a few other officers. I said, I'm not asking you guys to do it, but wouldn't it be interesting is if you thought yourself, and I said, would it be, if you did do it, are you then subject to any discipline? Are you subject to asking your boss, whoever's in charge or whatever? Or is it a personal thing? Because I've seen a London police officer do the same thing. I don't know if you guys have seen the image of a London police officer go down on one knee with a line of officers next to him, and they didn't. And there was a black guy next to him. So it wasn't just the fact that people are sick, but for me, like, you look at these police officers there, and they're just standing there. They're obviously there to observe the peace in the community. That's what they're there for. They're there to serve and protect. But would it be, in my opinion, if they agree that racism is wrong and people need to be held accountable, and communities need to come together in all areas of the world, wouldn't it be interesting if they said, you know what, guys, boom, we're with you. Like, we are you. We are human together. Not Black Lives Matter and all lives matter. No, not that at all. No, we're talking about Black Lives Matter. Let's keep on the subject. Black Lives Matter. Boom. Black Lives Matter. We're with you. We're with you, because then the crowd then can see, they can actually see visually that these police officers are with us, not against us. Because this is the issue: police against police brutality. The police officers there are there because of an incident of police brutality. But if the police turned around and did something, in my opinion, that was positive, the crowd, okay, they may take that as a negative, because we know this is the negativity is surrounding our imagination, going back to the negatives. But surely the crowd will also see that as, wow, this is amazing. We're here to protest against racism, and the police are here with us, not against us. Wow, that's pretty powerful, and that's what I tried to explain. So how we've had over 12 days of protest now, and you know, luckily people have been at home for the last 3 months, so to speak. How do we start working our way through this? How do we start working our way to some sort of resolve, some sort of I don't know. What's the answer, Carl? What do you think? It needs to be it's affirmative action. I'll take the words of a speaker called Philip Henry. He was one of the speakers at the park, and he said that we have momentum. We have momentum in the UK. We have momentum in the US. It's 12 days of protesting. We're there with our brethren over in America. You know, they're I've got lots of friends in America. They're impressed, and they're beside themselves with so much respect that the UK can stand up with so much power and so much solidarity. For Philip and for me, this is what we spoke about. There has to be a common goal. There has to be some sort of change within the system, within the rule making. Now, my suggestion was this, and I'll let Carl speak as well, but on his take on it. My suggestion was this: there was a place in Cardiff, it's called Cardiff Bay. It used to be called Tiger Bay. It's actually the birthplace of Dame Shirley Bassey. Tiger Bay is a predominantly ethnic community. There's up to 45 ethnics. And if you do your research on Tiger Bay, it was known for being a violent and disruptive community. But obviously, people who live there, it was known as being a beautiful up-and-coming community, and people who were there stuck together. But Cardiff changed the name from Tiger Bay to Cardiff Bay in 1999. And they built this waterway, and they did it for the tourists. They made it more kind of accessible for people. So what I said to Black Lives Matter Cardiff is I messaged them on Facebook this morning, and I said to them, wouldn't it be an idea if you could try and bring change through petition, through protesting, but actually have an end goal, actually say to Cardiff Council, we would like to change the name from Cardiff Bay back to Tiger Bay to represent the ethnic minorities that were in that community. And then surely that would show people, if Cardiff Council did that, that would show people that change can be brought about from protesting. And that's my thought on it. And at the end of the day, there must be towns and there must be cities in the UK that have changed their street names and have changed their landmarks and have changed their monuments from certain things to other things that could be reversed back to celebrate Black history and celebrate those moments in time. And that's where, in my opinion, the Black community needs to get behind some type of affirmative action, because there needs to be an end goal. Because if there isn't an end goal, all this momentum will just die, and it'll just happen biannually, or it'll happen annually.
Carl?
I don't think there's one answer. I think there's lots of things. I think part of the difficulty is we need to be more specific about what those things are. All police are not racist. All white people are not racist.
Correct.
But white supremacy does exist. And this thing about authority in people's minds is there. One of the things that I think is quite encouraging is when I've seen policemen take a knee in solidarity. And I've seen it in London, and I've seen it in other parts, in other demonstrations. I think part of the change has to be people being accountable. There has to be a change within the whole system of policing. The minute you've got a law which says you can choke someone and it's okay, or you can put your foot in someone's neck as long as you don't kill them, the fact is you shouldn't be able to do that in the first place. The fact that you've got laws that say you can treat people as less than human beings and it's okay, it's written in the law. You've got to rewrite.
In Minnesota, yes, that's right.
You've got to rewrite the whole fundamentals of this. That's the start. Police have to be in a position where they don't stand up for other bad cops. You've got to call things out. You've got to start doing that. I'm not sure changing road names and parks and all that's going to really change that much. I think deep down, you've got to get to the root of the issue. The root of the issue is partly this education, it's information, it's transformation. The Bible says about transformation of people's minds. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. People's minds and mindsets have to be renewed.
When you talk about education, there, because even the very fact this generation that's demonstrating, they wouldn't have had any teachings at all about the Stephen Lawrence case in schools, would they?
Okay, they wouldn't have had it. But if you think about this generation, and my daughter's in this kind of, I've got a daughter in their 20s, and I'm thinking they have realized the value of collaboration. They've realized the value that black people bring to the table. And that value has always been there, but it's been silenced. It's been pushed under the carpet. It's never been recognized. They recognize.
When you say silence, what do you mean silence? Because nobody can really silence you.
Okay. Well, nobody can silence you, but just don't hear your voice. Your opinion doesn't count. Your ideas don't count. You're never going to be put into a position of authority. You're going to go so far and so far only. I've worked for people that I knew and they knew I was smarter than them. And you know what they did? Found a way to get me out.
They found a way to get you out.
Get me out, right? But when I talk about education, you've got to. This generation is different because they're inclusive. And they accept, they recognize collaboration, they recognize partnership, and they recognize value, because so much of the white experience is linked to black culture.
Well, yeah.
You can't separate it, and they recognize we want this, we need it, we value it. But institutionally, the police are still on this tip of, we've got to come and get you, and we're going to beat the heck out of you, and you're a suspect. Look at the SOS laws. Look at things like that. Just think of how that went down. Stop and search. Who does it really target?
Yeah.
So do I'm saying that black people don't do things wrong? They're not criminals. Yes, they are, and they need to be rooted out. But the whole judicial system is aimed at a certain level of people. I go to prisons and preach in prisons. And what saddens me is in the prisons, there is the majority of people I see at any one time are young black males. Should some of them be there? Yes, but not all of them. They go through the system and are sentenced for things that are minor and get longer sentences. So the system in itself is set up to punish you at every single turn. And that's become normal. The whole rule book needs to be rewritten.
But you can't rewrite the rule book overnight.
Okay, then. In every company, there is a culture and there's a code of conduct. This is what we will do. This is what we won't do. This is what we stand up for, and this is what we don't stand up for. Unfortunately, the culture is we can do what we want and not have to pay for it. And it definitely could do it to a black person. We know we're going to get away with it.
Yeah, but
that's the culture. It's like the culture of an organization.
But companies have policies.
Sorry?
It's established that we have policies. Companies have policies by where they do things. The government has policies by which they do things. But these policies, in terms of the law, aren't always adhered to in the way they ought to.
You've got to look at the way the policies are written. There are certain laws that are written in favor of people of a certain sector of society, and there's certain laws that are written which are definitely not in the favor of black people.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. The laws are, the policymakers write laws, and that's why certain laws are written and sentences are dished out heavily to black people in certain areas where it's unnecessary, because the law is framed that way, because it's aimed at you. Now, we're not talking about favoritism, we're talking about justice. Why is it that one person could do something, okay, guy walks into a church, shoots 9 people,
Yeah.
gets arrested by the police, and gets a hamburger on the way to prison.
Yeah, we're talking about the States now, isn't it?
Hello, hello.
We're talking about America.
A guy's totally unarmed, selling water or whatever, gets choked to death. Hello.
Yeah, that's serious.
Come on. The whole system is wrong. In England, Stephen Lawrence gets killed. No one gets held to account for it.
Well, it took 20 years. It took years for it to
if that was Johnny Smith from Brentwood, and he had been hunted down by 4 black guys, I tell you what, every black person would be paying for that, whether you did it or not.
But Doreen Lawrence, she and her husband fought that. They fought the system on that one. They fought the system to get the guys indicted.
The fact that they've had to fight means the system's broken. You see, what also annoys me is, yes, about looting and stuff like that. I don't agree with looting. I don't agree with criminology. But people are more concerned about the looting than the loss of life. It's okay for police to brutalize people, but no, don't loot. Don't steal any property, because that would be wrong. We're losing sight of what the real issue is. It's not.
But it becomes a distraction.
It's why people are doing it.
It becomes a distraction.
But look at the system. In interchanging, there needs to be education. We need to relook at the laws and legislations. We need to even relook at the kind of people we have in our police force. Who are we recruiting? Yeah. What kind of thugs are we recruiting? The police force is like a gang. What's it all about? Who are they serving? Who are they serving? Gang. Well, it is because they're the only people that can go out and do whatever they want and not be held accountable.
Yeah, but you've got things we have things like the National Police Association. We've got the Black Federation of policemen. There's all those bodies that exist.
So. But who has the final say? Who has the final say? President Obama was president of the United States. He was a black man.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, they did everything to make sure that everything he tried to do, they undid.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got to look at who's really pulling the strings. We can employ you and put you in a position where you look like you've got some authority, but who's really making the decisions? Who's really making the law? Who's ratifying things? Who's signing things off? And who's in favor of? Listen, I know you don't. I don't want to get into a preach, but I have to bring the Bible into it. Proverbs 22 verse 8. What does it say? Whoever sows injustice will reap calamity. There's been a soul of injustice sown, and until there is justice, you're gonna have calamity. But you see, the people with white privilege just want this to go away. Oh, I heard someone say, "Well, you made your point."
Well,
so you think this is gonna go away? Oh,
but this is what I'm talking about, the way forward from here.
You've had a bit of protest, but now can we go back to normal?
Yeah.
Normal. What's normal? Me waiting for the next black person to be killed, which could be me.
No, can't just be around.
The next thing to happen, which could be my brother, which makes the next thing to happen, which could be my son or my grandson. So this, okay, if I did a little protest now, we get the point. The fact is, you might get the point. You don't get the point or the message. There needs to be change. There needs to be a re-education. There needs to be, this whole system needs to be rethought, because you're trying to use a system. I remember when computers were as big as my house.
Mainframe computers.
You've got to change.
They were mainframe.
Things have got to change. This generation, you see, you did this to the last generation and the generation before that and my parents' generation, but you're not going to get away with it in this one. These guys are not going to take it.
My parents' generation were different. They were passive. They came to work, and that's what they focused on.
Exactly. And this generation will not put up with that nonsense. And why should they? Why should this keep going on and on and on? For what purpose?
I remember stories told to me. When I was younger of one of my uncles being stopped by police, taken to the police station, and his head put into a toilet and flushed. And this happened on more than one occasion. This happened. This is back in the 60s. We had stories upon stories upon stories, and it just didn't seem to change at that time.
I got stopped 21 times in 1 month.
Wow.
Not charged with anything. Why?
Wow.
When I complained about it, all that happened is that police, he didn't stop me anymore. He sent someone else and always turned up. Just so happened to be there whenever I got stopped and searched. Now, I was in my 20s. That's 30 years ago. So this has pulled the whole scab. So it's not changed. So everything I went through, and I had to put up with it, and I had to fight with, for nothing? For
Wow.
nothing?
So
I have changed. I have changed the way I look at things. And I look at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
But the system that I have to work within hasn't changed.
Well,
Because all that's happening
this is what I'm
is happening
questioning
to someone
though,
else.
we have what we call some sort of diversity training that's compulsory within statutory bodies. There's diversity training that they have to go through. So what does it mean? The diversity training that they have is not valid.
So what does that training look like? You can call it what you want, but what does that training look like? What's the objective of that training? And how is it, where's the checks and balances of that training? What's the objectives? Is it just a tick box?
Well, hey,
We've done the training. We've done the training, so that's it. But go out there and do what you want now. But you've done the training. Training's important, but there needs to be some reason for training. There needs to be some accountability at the end of it. There needs to be a process. There needs to be something that we all buy into.
Yeah.
Or this is going to repeat itself, but worse.
But
because you see now the days of social media, the media having a very hard time just pushing a particular narrative. I took videos yesterday when I was out on protest, and I sent them around, and they were peaceful.
Yeah.
How come the media didn't post any of those pieces of the thousands and thousands of people who logged yesterday? How come they never actually posted anything about that? Because it doesn't suit what they want you to hear. But a policewoman falls off a horse.
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
it's a big, listen, I don't want to fall off a horse, but first of all, why was the need to have horses there? To intimidate.
Yeah. There
was no need for horses there. They said, the media said, oh, 23 policemen were hurt last week. But that weren't nothing to do with this. What was that? If you're a policeman, the chances are in this country, X amount of them are going to get hurt every week anyway, because it's the nature of their job. Some of them might slip on banana skin. I don't know. But they had to bring that into the foresight. 23 policemen were hurt this week, and this poor one fell off a horse. The horse bolted because it was spooked. That's what horses do.
The horse was spooked by the crowd.
But all the 1,000 people that were there,
yeah,
of everything that peaceful was happening, you didn't want to report on that, but you had to make it look like these thugs, these protesters, they spooked the horse, and look what happened to this policewoman. We were protesting against police brutality. If she fell off a horse, that's unfortunate. But why is that the big topic? Why is the brutality of Black people not the topic? Why is it deaths of people not the topic? Why is injustice not the topic? Why is that not important? Why are we going after this poor woman? I wish her well. But that's not the topic. There's thousands of people that have gathered in London in the midst of a coronavirus. You know why? Because this is so important to them.
Yeah, that's the worrying
side. Coronavirus, despite that, people say, you know what? We have to do something. Because this virus of racism is rampant. And we've got to do something. So but the media doesn't want to see that. The media, you see, the media is not important. All these things need to change.
Right. But what's the conversation? What's the conversation that's going to drive that change? What is the conversation that's going to drive that change? Because it has to be a conversation that drives the change and holds it accountable for it to happen.
I wish I could give you that in one sentence.
Well,
it probably isn't. But at least this is going up the agenda now.
Well, yeah.
It's gone up the agenda, and it's not just a few Black people protesting, because we like to march and like to protest from the days of Martin Luther King. But now there's different people protesting. There's people that are in position saying, I don't want to hold that position no more. I'm not going to hold that opinion anymore. and these people at a level where we couldn't get to by ourselves.
But if you remember,
These
apartheid
conversations, sorry?
Apartheid in South Africa fell because the whole world got involved.
Okay.
The whole world got involved.
The world is getting involved in this. From London to Australia, New Zealand, to France, all over the place. And the whole world is coming together and saying, enough is enough. Change must come. And if the people that in higher places don't listen to it, you know what? You're going to be like President Trump's now barricading himself in.
So we're actually talking about having town hall meetings then. Having town hall meetings with officials to discuss some of the changes that's required. And not just a locker room of a group of guys going away and talking about it. Public town hall meetings across the country.
We need to be invited to those meetings. We need to be sat around the table. We don't want to be out in the hallway. We want to be sat around the table. We want to be involved in decisions that are made. We want to be involved in policies. We want them to understand you need to change this because this is broken. And if you don't change it, you think it's broken now, it'll be broken even more.
So we're talking about something to carry the people along.
This is not just black people rising up. This is black and white people rising up.
It's a mixture. There's black, there's white, there's Asians. Everybody's involved now.
Black or white, you know. My argument isn't for black or white. My argument is for justice for all.
Justice, yeah.
Justice for all.
Wherever injustice is, yeah.
And once we start going for justice for all, that's a whole different argument than, well, it's those black people, you know what they're like, because that's what people like to say. But that is the truth. We are people. We have feelings. We have ambitions. We have dreams. We have gifts. We have something to bring to the table. We always have. That's why you wanted us to work for you for free. And because you can't do that anymore, you want to throw us away.
Yeah.
Abuse is, you see, abuse to certain people is normal. For an abuser, to abuse someone is normal. And they want us to receive racism as being normal and just lay down and accept it. Well, hey, we woke up, we're doing it.
We've been talking about racism for the last 25, 40, 50 years. We've been talking about that in this country for such a long time. We've been looking at it. We've even had a racial justice department at one point in time that was providing the leadway on this, and then it just suddenly dissipated.
Because governments will find some way, they will let you go so far, then they will just turn the tap off and hope that you go away and they can go back to their norm.
So we haven't been strong enough to keep the narrative on the table then.
I think we've not been in the corridors of power where decisions are being made.
But we have politicians. We have politicians sitting, representing us.
Not enough. Clearly not enough. And not in the right places. And what they're putting forward, the Dan Abbotts of this world and the other guys,
David Lammy.
Maybe they're just getting lip service. They just listen to them, but I think we'll listen to you, but we're not going to change anything. But you can bleat on about the Windrush stuff and all that. You can bleat on all you want, but hey, you know, we hold the keys. I'm not a politician. I'm a normal person. I have my opinions. They might not always be right, but that's my viewpoint. And this is well, in the core of things. It's been wrong, and it's always been wrong.
Well, this has become the topical discussion for the last 12 days, and it's probably going to continue beyond to the end of the year.
This discussion has not been going on for 12 days. This discussion has been going on for decades.
No, it's been going on for decades, yeah.
It's just that certain people haven't been hearing it.
Okay.
Because it's uncomfortable. It's been going on. We've been screaming about this from back in the day. But people don't want to hear it. And then time we bring it up, oh, it doesn't exist. I don't see colour. Nonsense.
Well,
so are you blind?
That statement has been used so many times about not seeing colour.
It's not it's
a favorite one.
The fact that you don't see it, does that mean it's not there then?
Yeah.
You don't see it because it's uncomfortable for you to see it, because you might have to do something about it. And you don't want me to talk about it because it makes you feel uncomfortable. So you want me to stay in my discomfort so you can be comfortable. If you don't like me, unfriend me. If you don't like my messages, take me off your Facebook. If you don't like me, that's fine. I'm cool with it. Because I need people that are going to stand with me and stand for justice.
Well, we certainly have a challenge and a mountain to climb with this. And we've got to find a way to keep this on the agenda, keep talking about it, keep some sort of traction with it, and have some sort of policies amended and driven through government that starts to address the situation in a public kind of way.
Do you think that the officers arrested now would have been charged and arrested without protest? No way.
No, I
It should have
don't
been
think.
just on the carpet. It took them days to even arrest the guy
Well,
with the evidence.
their current practice
With
would not have arrested.
in Georgia, the guy shot him 2 months in February. They only just arrested him. Come on now. Now, you tell me right and wrong. You know what's right and what's wrong, but
the argument is that's America. That's not the UK. That's America. That's not the UK.
Okay.
And if that was the UK, they would have been arrested.
Shall we look at some of the UK stuff then? I'm happy to do that. or do we want to wait till it gets so bad here to then do something about it? Because I'm telling you what, we're not far off. We're not far off. Things happen every day. All that's happening now is they get filmed. And still nothing happens. So anyone who's thinking it's happening next door. Well, I tell you what, this is coming to a cinema near you soon. So you can carry on thinking, well, it's over there, it doesn't really matter.
It's coming to a cinema near you.
Meanwhile, your house is about to burn down.
No.
So you only care about something that's happening in your back garden.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what, these last episodes of things have hurt me so deeply. I don't even know the people, but I feel like I know them.
Yeah, well, the tragedy was
these
when you watch the video.
These things that happened in the last few days, the last few months, people that are not even people of color have been so disgusted about it, and I don't know them. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And only the people that are not angry about it are part of the problem. You should be angry about this. You should want to change this. If you've got any DC about you, you should want social justice. So
if there hadn't been a video, if there wasn't a video of the event, if there wasn't a recording of the event, and you just heard that this black guy was killed by police, it wouldn't have had that dramatic effect around the world. But when you watch that video and you saw the policeman kneel in the guy's neck, and he's saying, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe," and then at one point, the policeman looks up into the camera. He looks into the camera. His body weight on the guy. And he looks into the camera. And you're thinking, you're looking into the camera. You're not even showing any remorse.
Because he's no accountability. He's done it before. That's not his first rodeo. This is the first time he's done it. This is normal.
Wow.
When police arrested me and roughed me up, do you think it was their first time they've done it? This is their norm, because that's what the culture of their employment is, that you can do this, and we will help you to justify it. Instead of giving you murder 1, we'll try with capital murder 3 first, so we can get you out the back door. We will find a way to get you off this.
Well, I really believe out of this, we're going to have to help drive the agenda for change. It won't just happen. There has to be a massive push behind it.
And it starts by being standing up and being counted, being present.
I'm not even sure how the Grenfell resolve was made. If all the families were housed in the end, because that just disappeared from the news.
The people are still dead, though.
Yeah.
The people are still dead, but you see, that's a whole other debate. That is, to be honest with you, that's a whole other thing altogether. Listen, I want to get along with my neighbors. I want to get along with everybody.
Of course,
Mark says, love your neighbor.
Of course,
all right.
Of course,
my neighbors are white. I want to love them. I don't want to go outside and think you're white, so I'm going to have to stone you, because that's not what it's about. It's about, if you're for justice, I'm with you. If you're not, then I'm not for you. If you're about brutality and you're about injustice, then we're gonna have a problem.
So, Carl, we're going to bring this to a close now, Carl. So, what is the path you'd like to see the resolve along? How would you like to see this come to some sort of conclusion? It may not be an immediate conclusion, but we're talking something happening over the next 6 to 12 months. What would you like to see happen?
I'd like a total review in terms of the laws, the way they're implemented, and even a review of some of the past cases. We've got so many people that have not had justice. You know, you've had bad cops and done things. You've got to go back and undo some of that stuff. You've got to look at a different way to communicate with people. You've got to look at a different way to train officers to interact with people. We need people at the table. We need to be invited to the party where decisions are being made. We need to start to value. We need to be seen as valuable.
Listen, my mind's going back to when we've had major recruitment of black officers into the police force. And I remember some time ago when they were recruiting, and there was this inference that they were recruiting black police of lower qualification just to get them inside the force. And that was inferred at this was years ago. But we've had massive campaigns to recruit black officers, and yet still nothing seems to have changed.
But when you recruit those black officers, you never let them get past a certain level. You keep them as foot soldiers, so they never get to make a decision. They're just told what to do. We need people at a higher level that can impact on our lives. You can employ as many foot soldiers you want, but they're just got to follow the instructions. Yes, it's great to have them there because maybe someone will have a bit of morals about them and say, listen, that's wrong, stop doing that. But at the end of the day, the decisions are not made on the ground level, they're made at a high level.
Wow.
And if we're not at that table, if we can't change, if we can't, it's not just a police force. This is in the councils. This is in this.
Well, it's the whole
institutional racism is everywhere. We've got
all
to
our
start to change
people's
thought processes. We've got to look at how these rules are made and who they benefit. And
so
who's making the rules.
We want to see change. We want change to happen. So how are we going to help facilitate that change? How can we facilitate it?
We need to move in unity. We have to get past this. We can protest, but we can't do that forever. This needs to be coming together in some sort of forum where the voices are going to be heard and action is going to be taken, and all the bad policemen are going to have to be. And it isn't just one or two. There's a lot of it. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to really look at the whole.
So we're talking about bringing together of the voices up and down the country. The voices who have an interest, who are interested in this. We're bringing together of the voices to discuss this deeper, to help put a strategy in place to start driving this through all our public bodies.
That's right. Unfortunately, the voices that we have at the table now don't have a vested interest in changing this because it suits them to keep it the way it is. So perhaps we need to change who's at the table.
No, or could it have been that they've talked about it so much and they feel helpless themselves?
They don't have a vested interest. Slave masters didn't have a vested interest in abolishing slavery, did they?
Well, you're talking
England
about...
had to be paid. Listen, the English government had to pay out money to people to get them to relinquish their slaves because they were making so much money from it. So you know, you've got to have a vested interest. The people at the top now don't have an interest in changing things. Until you start burning things down, that's when they suddenly start waking up. Oops. Wow. And when something goes on,
that's a
see, they were happy for you. You're happy for you to march for 2 or 3 days. When those go on to 12 days, hang on a minute. They're normally finished by now. Why is it still happening?
It's kind of
when you start to burn the place down, you start to think, oh, we need to do something now. We need to listen. You shouldn't have to take that. And it always takes something like that to get someone's attention. That shouldn't be the case. We should be able to communicate and understand that our opinion is worth something. And you need us as much as we need you.
Yeah, we need each other. We need 21st century Britain. We need each other. Hey, Carl, thank you so much for coming on today and discussing and sharing your heart. You know, we've heard your heart today, and we've heard Charles as well speaking to us, and we want to see change. And as you said, the generation, the younger generation, are adamant about seeing change. So there's a major collaboration now between people of different race to see a final conclusion. And it may not be, as you said, it's not one solution, it's not one conclusion. It's a number of different things that has to happen up and down the country, within the different town halls, talking to different people to bring a resolve as to what's happening, to go back into our school system and provide the education that's required in our school system, and not just look at Black History Month, because somehow we seem to have everything deposited in Black History Month and think it's going to solve all our issues.
Black history is not an October thing. You know, the black education system tells us that it talks about slavery. We were around before slavery. We were doing very well, thank you very much. And we're not educated. You know, the whole education system is flawed. And if we could go on for another hour about that, that's flawed. But you're taught certain things. The whole narrative is our story is told from their viewpoints.
Yeah.
That's their truth, not our truth.
And that was what perpetuated. That's what came to me the other day. To me, that was what in my mind the other day, is that as a community, we haven't been telling our stories enough. Now, during this time, the last 4 or 5 or 6 days, I've heard so many stories of people telling their stories of racist abuse, of situations they've faced in their workplace, on the bus, in different situations where people have treated them in a negative way. We haven't been telling these stories publicly. And I'm probably, if we've been standing up and telling these stories consistently, then somehow we wouldn't have allowed it to get this far. What do you think?
Well, change does happen, and I think people are uncomfortable. We kind of get on with life because we have to live in this society. But that's this generation of now, they are not going to put up with it. They are, and they've actually had to put up with less than we've had to put up with it, but they're not putting up with any stuff.
They're not going to wait.
And he's right. We need to tell our story, and we need to be comfortable with telling our story and comfortable with calling things out. Just because someone's uncomfortable with it, that's not our problem. That's your problem. That's their problem. The fact that we've got to call it out and keep calling it out.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, we have to call it out the way it is, and make sure that we are consistent in calling it out, and making sure that everything we do, we treat it in a very strategic kind of way, making sure that there are people accountable, there are people held accountable, and there are people put in place to facilitate this all the way through. It won't happen on its own. It won't happen for one person. It's going to take a whole community of Black and white and Asian and other minorities to help see this through, change that we see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well put, Alex. I'm glad you tied everything together nicely.
Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you so much. And you know, we're going to continue talking about this.
Yeah.
We're going to continue talking about this. You know, it's not going to
anyway.
It's not going to go away.
So, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Let me just look at 1 or 2 of the comments that have come through while you were talking. Yes, full time. Yes. And there's one that says good, healthy debate. Yep. We need to keep having good, healthy debate. We need to keep discussing this. We need to push an agenda through. And it's, as I said, it's going to take everybody to make this happen. Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. And please keep this narrative on the agenda. We've got to keep talking about this because it's you and I generation that's going to make this happen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Carl, don't disappear.